Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. Give me just a moment so I can make sure that those that need Spanish interpretation can get access to it. Buenas tardes y muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros en otro foro comunitario 3en.com SOC. Como siempre, ustedes pueden escuchar este foro en español a través de una llamada de conferencia. Y el número que hay que marcar aparece aquí en la pantalla y es 646-749-3122. Y el código que hay que entrar después es 779-328-221. Also, I just want to remind everybody that if you are not able to be with us at 3 o'clock on the dot, we always have these videos with our guests uploaded to our Facebook page and our YouTube page. So you can always see what kind of information we're sharing, no matter what time of day it is. And we also encourage you to comment on those videos, even if you're watching them later in the day or on a totally different day. So please remember, in Spanish and English, we have these videos available for you after the fact as well. I'm Gabe Charles. I'm the Civic Engagement Manager. Very glad to be here with you all on this Monday devoted to civic information, and we're excited to have Ed Fallone from Marquette University Law School with us here today. I also want to remind everybody that SOC staff is here for you. We are still not doing anything in person, but you can call us. You can call us at 414-672-8090. You can email us at soc@socmilwaukee.org, and you can visit our website that also has lots of information and resources for all of you at www.socmilwaukee.org. I also want to encourage everybody to be filling out our survey. We still have this survey active, and we want everyone. Oops, sorry about that. We want everybody to fill out this survey so we know what's going well, what you're enjoying about these forums, what topics you would like us to cover, any information you want to share with us. Please feel free to fill out this survey. And this link is always in our comment section for all of you. Also, just a reminder that all SOC staff is working virtually, like I said already, and that's why you don't see me with a face mask. If we were all in the office, we would absolutely be adhering to the mask mandate and staying safe for ourselves and our loved ones by wearing a mask. But we're all still working from home to stay safe during these spikes in the coronavirus pandemic. So let us know who's here today. Please let us know if you're here by putting a like on our page, giving us a heart, saying hello, just putting your name in the comments, whatever it may be, just to let us know that you're here watching with us. And also, I just want to give a disclaimer that the views and opinions shared today do not necessarily reflect those of SOC. As always, there are certain topics that we can cover and certain topics that we can't, but we always want to make sure that our guests have the space to share their views and opinions as well. So again, like I said, today is Civic Day, and we're going to be talking with Ed Fallone from Marquette University Law School, an associate professor there, to give us legal insight into the election. And also for the rest of this week, tomorrow is Youth Day. Wednesday is going to be Spanish Day with Nelson Soler. Thursday is COVID Day and we're going to have Claire Evers on with us. And then Friday, Pastor Marty will be with us. So it's an exciting week. We hope that you can tune in with us as you're able to hear all the information that these guests have to share with us. And with that, I'm going to bring on Tammy Rivera, our executive director, who's going to be having this discussion with Ed Fallone today.
Thank you, Gabi. Appreciate it. Hola, everyone. It is November 9th, if you can believe it, 2020, and just about a week from the presidential election. And we thought it would be important for all of us to get a better understanding of what happens next between for the transition in the presidency, given what we know current President Trump is suggesting in terms of lawsuits and his rejection of the preliminary results or the called results. And so we rely on what we know to be our greatest subject matter expert here for our residents, which is Ed Fallone. And so I'd like you to welcome once again a very special guest on a very special edition of 3 o'clock with SOC, Ed Fallone. Hola, Ed.
Buenas tardes, Tammy. Hola.
I see you have the vintage black and white look on your camera. I'm liking it.
Yeah, well, sometimes things happen on these video calls and you don't know why. So I don't know why that is, but we'll take it.
It's a nice difference. We like variety. Ed, welcome. We're so grateful you're with us to help make sense of what's happening. It's a lot of information, a lot of allegations, and it's super confusing. So first, let's just talk about your role at Marquette. And I want to remind the audience that you also have been a candidate for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And so we know that you swim in constitutional waters, and that's what we're needing. So let's talk about your role a little bit at Marquette, and then let's dig into the topic of today.
Okay, well, my real job is I'm a professor at Marquette University Law School, where I've been for almost 30 years. My areas of specialty include constitutional law, immigration law, and corporate and business law. I've also been very active in the nonprofit sector over the years, leading organizations that provide affordable lawyers, especially to Spanish-speaking clients, and getting more accessibility to legal advice in our community. And I just finished serving as the co-chair of the Wisconsin Todos con Biden committee. So actually, I was with a group of local Wisconsinite volunteers who did our best to get out the Latino vote for the Biden-Harris ticket. But that is over. Joe Biden is victorious. He is now president. And so now I get to revert back to the law professor point of view and evaluate these claims that President Trump is making in the media.
Great. Thank you for just being an educator, which is such a critical role in our community with one of our signature flagship institutions. Ed, help us understand what is normal or average about this presidential call. What's unusual, and then walk us through what happens next.
Sure. I think it's important to, first of all, applaud all of the hard election workers, the people at the polls for live voting, the volunteers who are scanning and counting all the absentee ballots in Wisconsin and all over the country. This election actually went extremely well. It is not unusual that we had election day, November 3rd, pass without a winner being declared, because we had just historic numbers of absentee ballots that were mailed in. We have many states that permit mailing in of ballots and early voting in person, and Wisconsin is one of those states. And that's always been a part of the vote counting. But what was different this year is that there were so many votes cast early. And so it took much longer. Unfortunately, some states like Wisconsin don't allow the counting process to begin early. They require us all to wait and start counting on election day. And so since there was such a huge volume of early votes, it just took longer to count. So there was nothing unusual there. And there was also nothing unusual in the fact that the in-person voting gave President Trump an early lead in several states. It was expected that the early votes, the mail-in votes, absentee, would be very heavily Democratic because the Democrats were urging their supporters to vote that way, whereas President Trump was urging his supporters to vote in person. And so everyone knew that as the in-person votes were counted, it would give President Trump a lead, but then it would eventually diminish and Biden would catch up as the absentee ballots were counted. And that's in fact what happened. So there was nothing in the process that seemed unusual. It was actually a very smooth process. What is unusual is to have the loser in the election to refuse to admit their loss and refuse to congratulate the victor. And that is something that is unusual in American history. We've had many hard-fought election campaigns for president, a lot of anger and bad blood, but this is the first time that the loser has really gone this far in refusing to accept the vote.
That's so in the last election, we had Hillary Clinton. And do you remember when she gave the congratulations? Like, when did that occur? Usually happens like the day of, the next day is announced, right?
Yeah, well, it was fairly quick. I don't recall if it was the day after or the day after that, but it was fairly soon after. Um, it was not a close election in the Electoral College. Of course,
No.
Hillary Clinton received more votes than Donald Trump, but we then have to allocate all the votes cast by human beings into electoral votes, which tends to amplify. It tends to amplify and make larger differences. And that's what happened. And so by the Electoral College in 2016, it was not particularly close.
No.
It was not like Bush v. Gore, which
Gore,
came down
the Gore,
to
yeah.
one state. And that's sort of the situation we're in now. This is not a close race. For President Trump to argue that he should be the winner, he would have to reverse or overturn at least 4 different states' results. It's almost impossible, I mean, to conceive of undoing, rewinding, and reversing the results in 4 different states. But that's the only way President Trump could argue that he was the winner. So this is not a particularly close election, and he should definitely concede. And if he's not conceding, I think that's simply because he has his own political motivations. It's not that he really thinks he'll win in a lawsuit. It's that he wants to marshal his supporters, and he wants to get ready for whatever Act 2 of Donald Trump is, whether it's starting a media company or continuing to support candidates in races or raise money for whatever cause. I think he's more focused on keeping his fans and supporters on his side for those efforts than he is in really challenging the election.
And so the next steps is if I understand correctly, he has the right to request some recounts. Are there boundaries within which places he can request recounts?
Yes, in certainly in 2 states, Wisconsin and Georgia, it looks like the race is close enough that under the law, he can request a recount of the votes to make sure that there were no addition, subtraction, tabulation mistakes. I believe he has to pay for it if it's less than 0.5% difference in Wisconsin. The state pays for it. I think he's at 0.6% difference. So he would have to pay. And it usually costs several $1 million because you're talking about the salaries for the time of all the officials involved. Something like $3 million, I think, was the most recent Wisconsin recount bill. Jill Stein in 2016, as I recall, asked for a recount. He can ask for the recount, but we have a history here in Wisconsin. He's got 20,000 votes difference between himself and Joe Biden. The last 2 recounts, in the 2016 and in the 2011 Supreme Court race, there were recounts of those elections in Wisconsin, and they only switched a couple hundred votes.
Wow.
So even though he has the right under the law to ask for a recount in Wisconsin and in Georgia, it is highly unlikely that a recount will find anything other than basically the same totals. So the recounts are not his key to victory. What would perhaps make a difference would be if he could find large number of votes in a state where it seems like state law did not permit those votes to be counted. And the example everyone's looking at is in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court in a case allowed absentee ballots, to be counted if they arrived up to 3 days after the election, as long as they've been mailed prior to Election Day and were postmarked. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court had a decision in a lawsuit, and they said, look, we'll give you an extra 3 days. There's an argument to be made that it's not the job of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to change election law, and that that's only the job of the state legislature in Pennsylvania. And so that all the ballots that were included to be counted 3 days after Election Day should not be counted. So that's the kind of wholesale challenging a rule that could get you a lot of votes, and perhaps based on the facts might cause the result to change. The difficulty for Donald Trump is that it looks like Joe Biden's lead in Pennsylvania is somewhere around 40,000 votes. And the largest estimate I've seen of ballots that could be invalidated because they arrived too late was 10,000. So even if he could win his challenge to those ballots and have those 10,000 ballots not counted anymore, Joe Biden still has enough of a lead to win Pennsylvania. So that doesn't work. And then you look at the other states, none of those states had any changes to their state law. Everything was followed according to state law. There were no new changes that could be challenged. And so there, the president and his supporters are doing what you might call retail challenges. They're looking for a specific 10 votes that were inappropriately treated a certain way, 2 votes that were found in a trash can or in a dumpster. They don't have any wholesale challenge to a rule that could get rid of thousands of votes. They're going 5 here, 100 there. And that's just never going to add up to enough to win, to change it. So
now,
it really is. It's such an incredibly unlikely possibility that through a series of lawsuits, he could change the results in 4 states and have the election given to him. It's unheard of.
And do we know, has he officially taken whatever formal step it is to request a recount here in Wisconsin? Like, what is that official step?
You cannot officially request a recount in Wisconsin until the vote is actually certified. So and that will not happen. I mean, even though we have the results, there's a certification process, and that probably won't happen until December, maybe early December. And then the law allows for the request for a recount. And that's another factor that goes against Donald Trump, is that by the time he could ask for a recount, it's all pretty much going to be decided anyway. So increasingly, what people keep asking the president and his supporters is, where's your evidence? Bring it out now, because it's not going to get any better for you. And if you don't have any evidence now, then you should concede and you should accept the result.
Yeah, well, we talked about the certification last week, which, if I remember correctly, and Gabe can correct me when she gets back on, I believe it's December 1st that our commissioner said she would have the certified results. So he'd have to wait to that period of time. And then after that period of time, what's the formal step? Is it filing a document? Is it?
Yeah, he would file a request for a recount. And again, we have experience in Wisconsin. We always go into an election prepared if there's going to be a recount, and it goes very quickly. They retabulate all the totals and double check, and they can do it fairly quickly. But again, in our experience as a state,
it hasn't made a difference.
They've never switched more than a couple hundred votes.
Now, there's rumored, President Trump supporters, that the Homeland Security or some federal department put watermarks on ballots to see. So there is a rumor going around that for Donald Trump. Is that a possibility?
Elections for president are run by the individual states. The federal government has no role in the elections. They are run by individual states. And in fact, this is something that many people find frustrating, because there are 50 different laws on When can you vote? Can you vote absentee through the mail? Yes or no? When can you do it? Can you vote early in person? Yes or no? When do you start counting the absentee ballots? Do you count them as they come in, or do you have to wait? Every state is different because every state is under state law. And so some people try to argue, well, what we need is a national standard and we need to have the federal government make everything uniform. But to tell you the truth, there is great power in this decentralization, leaving it to the states, and the states all being different, because it means someone like Trump can't use the power of the federal government to influence the election. It is 50 different states. So I can tell you the Department of Homeland Security, which is part of the federal government, had nothing to do with any of the election process in any state. It's all state process. It's one of the most localized aspects of our democracy. If you think about how in every county you have clerks who are in charge of the election in that county, it is a very localized process. The federal government is not involved.
And we haven't had a precedent, Ed, in the past where elections were tested in different states to see if there was any foul play. Has that ever been come to play in a presidential election?
The tradition in our country has been that judges, especially federal judges, do not get involved in deciding winners and losers of elections. There have been some exceptions where people have been able to allege the violation of civil rights, which is a federal offense. And so in cases where there have been illegal ballots cast, and this happened, I believe it was in South Carolina the last time, where someone hired individuals who turned in fake absentee ballots and was caught. And it was done in a way that suppressed the black candidates' votes. When you have a civil rights violation attempt to prevent African American or minority communities from voting, then maybe a federal judge would get involved. The only exception was the United States Supreme Court getting involved in Bush versus Gore. And that was a situation very different from this. Right now, we're in a situation where votes are being counted. It's putting Joe Biden ahead, and we're just waiting for the count. In Bush versus Gore, the count had already finished. And in Florida, there were a series of recounts and then more recounts. And what the United States Supreme Court said was, stop. We need finality. We need to stop the recounting. Well, we're not near that situation right now. We're in a situation of we're counting. And there is no precedent in federal law, in US law, for stopping ballots from being counted the first time. And so unless President Trump can allege some civil rights violation, that his rights are being violated on the basis of his race, then really there's no precedent in federal law for courts to get involved at all. And traditionally they should just not do it. It's just not it's not how we handle elections. We let the people vote, and we don't decide elections by lawsuit.
And other federal bodies outside of court, if the court doesn't have, authority and doesn't exercise that, surely other federal agencies, Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, no one's gonna be testing what's happening in states with their elections.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the state certifies the results and sends those to the federal government and to Congress. And as long as we have a clear winner, there is no role for Congress. Now, if you have a tie election, then there's a role for Congress. And that's not going to happen. Yes, it's elections are a matter of state law, not federal law at all. And so there is no role for any federal government agency, and there should not be a role for the federal courts, except in those two narrow circumstances I described.
And so what's the farthest out date that President Trump would have. So let's say Georgia and Wisconsin certify early December. Is there an outdate, a timeline in which he has to demand any other investigations or recounts?
Well, again, what we have here is not the situation of Bush versus Gore. In Bush versus Gore, you had election results and recounts were taking place in Florida. And we are just getting very close to, I think it was the middle of December, towards the end of December, if I recall correctly. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, stop. We need to just accept the results. But there's no reason to believe we'll be counting votes beyond, maybe by the end of this week, maybe the early next week for some stragglers. But I think we'll be pretty much done. So there's no reason to intervene. And again, we're just counting the votes. And so it's all on Donald Trump's shoulders. If he has specific evidence of fraud in casting of ballots, he needs to have enough incidents across 4 states to overcome Joe Biden's lead in all 4 states. It's just inconceivable that he would succeed.
Well, let me say hello to some of our viewers today and see if they have any questions. Hola, María de Jesús. Hola, Maricano. Hola, Diana Becerra. Do you have any questions for Professor Fallone before we thank him for his insights today? Is there anything else you want to add to this discussion, Ed, before we close out?
Yeah, well, I just want people to feel proud of how our democracy works. This was an incredible election in terms of the number of people who voted. I mean, both Joe Biden and Donald Trump broke the record for the most votes received in a presidential race. So huge participation. We should all be very proud of that. The smoothness with which all of these states handled record amounts of mail-in ballots.
During a pandemic.
And the fact that, President Trump can't find anything to complain about. I mean, he can yell and scream. He can say there are, irregularities, whatever that means. But when you push him, he has no evidence of any problem. And so the fact that all of these ballots were cast, all of these mail-in ballots were sent in, and there's no hard evidence of any fraud at all. We should be proud of that we could run this election. And so while many people shake their heads and they hear President Trump and they worry about the future of this country, I find our election to be a very positive thing that gives me hope for our country.
Yeah, I think we can all feel the same way. You have to, even if you don't agree on the candidate, be so proud of every person during a pandemic that made the extra effort to vote. It's just a shining time for the American citizen, despite all the political things that are going on. Well, Ed, we thank you for providing your insight and your presence. We needed you. We needed to hear, and we're so appreciative that you're with us. Be safe.
Thank you, Tammy. Great to see you. Take care, everyone.
Adios. All right, I'm going to hand the forum back to Gabe, and thank you all for being with us.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you to both Tammy and Ed for that amazing conversation that shed light on a lot of questions I'm sure a lot of people are having right now. I know I myself have been confused about some things going on, so it's always nice to get that clarification from someone who knows what they're talking about. So thanks again to Professor Fallone for being here with us. I also just want to uplift some other winners, unofficial winners in the Milwaukee area. So we have Gwen Moore from the 4th District here in Milwaukee for the U.S. House of Representatives. And she won by she won with 74.64% of the vote. Then we also have Marisabel Cabrera, who won for the State Assembly District 9, and she won with 72.77% of the vote. And then finally, in the SOC district, we have Sylvia Ortiz Velez, who won State Assembly District 8 with 78.7% of the vote. So of course, these elections are important. We're thinking a lot about who won the presidency, but also we had these other folks that won in the positions that are more local to SOC's district. So we're excited to see these people win and to see what they will do for the next 4 years. Other than that, I just wanted to give you all some other numbers. So I let you know how much, what percent of the vote Gwen Moore, Sylvia Ortiz Velez, and Marisabel Cabrera won with. Joe Biden in Milwaukee County won with 69.13% of the vote. And I just, again, want to uplift what both Ed and Tammy were saying, that we should be so proud of voter turnout in the Milwaukee area. For Milwaukee County, voter turnout was 83.67%, meaning that of all people who are registered to vote, 83.67% of those people actually cast their ballot in one way or another, which is phenomenal. It's record-breaking, and we're just so proud of everyone that took the time to make sure that they got their vote in. And just to give you an idea, in 2020, so in this election, 460,300 votes in Milwaukee County were cast, and in 2016 it was 444,000. So a big increase in Milwaukee County as well. Again, so thankful to everybody that got out to vote. And then something else that happened last week amongst all this chaos with the election was that the city budget was narrowly adopted in a vote of 8-7. And some major aspects of this budget to keep in mind are that the tax levy, which is the total amount of money that the city collects from property taxes, will increase by 2.8% from the 2020 levy, making it about $299.2 million. So what that means for an average house that is valued at about $126,000, that means that those fees would increase about $86 in 2021. Also, something with the budget is that it kept in place the decision not to fill 120 police officer positions that were open due to attrition. So that means through retirement or through people quitting, there were these 120 positions open that will not be filled to save money for the city. And then also the council decided to leave in place a $10 increase in the wheel tax, so the amount of money it costs to register a vehicle. So now it will be $30 instead of $20 to do that. And finally, another major aspect is that the council approved a series of other measures, which would include one that reallocates $500,000 to create a new Safe Homes lead abatement initiative. As we know, lead in our homes is a huge issue in the SOC district and all over the city. So this is great to see that these funds are being made available for that. And so next steps with the budget is that the mayor, Tom Barrett, has until November 17th to sign the budget or to issue any vetoes. He has said he doesn't think that anything has jumped out at him, so he doesn't think any major vetoes will happen, but he may make some small changes. So we'll stay up to date with that and let you all know what's going on with the budget as it comes out. And I also just want to let you all know what's coming up this week in terms of Common Council and Common Council committee meetings and other commission meetings. Today at 1:30, there was a City Plan Commission meeting, and also at 1:30, there was a Steering and Rules Committee meeting. Tonight at 6 p.m., there's going to be a Safety and Civic Commission meeting. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., there's a Licenses Committee meeting. Also tomorrow at 3 p.m., there's a Milwaukee Arts Board and Public Art Subcommittee meeting. Tomorrow, we can also look out for the FPC Rules Subcommittee meeting at 4:30, the Board of Health meeting at 5:30, and an FPC, the Fire and Police Commission Research Committee meeting at 5:30, all tomorrow. Then Wednesday, there's a Public Works Committee meeting at 9 a.m. and a Housing Authority meeting at 1:30 p.m. Also at 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday is a Community Economic Development Committee meeting. Also on Wednesday at 2:30 is a City-County Task Force on Climate and Economic Equity. And then Thursday at 9 a.m., a Public Safety and Health Committee meeting, as well as a Board of Directors for Trava Inc. meeting. And then finally on Thursday, we have an FPC, Fire and Police Commission Testing and Recruiting Committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. So lots to look forward to this week. Lots of information will be shared at those meetings, and we'll keep you up to date with any major things that come out of them. And with that, I want to invite on Steph O'Connor, who's coming to us from the Department of Neighborhood Services, going to talk to us about landlord trainings and Rent for Success information. So I'll bring her on. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I certainly can. Thank you for being on here with us.
Of course. Of course. That was such a good civic update. I'm so impressed. It was, all the good stuff.
Yeah, loads of good information. We're thankful for everybody that comes on to give us that insight that we wouldn't have otherwise.
No, it's great. All the meetings are not always super thrilling, but there's always good information. So awesome. So I am just here to give some dates for the next few trainings in November and December. With the holidays, there's not as many trainings, so make sure that if you're interested in either of these, you are able to get in. There are 2 different dates for landlord training. Let me pull them up. In the next 2 weeks, actually. So on November 12th, later this week, and on November 18th, we have 2 trainings. Both of those are during the day in English. And then on Thursday, the 19th, we have our landlord training in Spanish. So also during the day from 10 to 3, you'll get all of the materials. It'll be virtual. You can log on from wherever. And then in December, we only have 2 dates for instead of the normal 3 to 4. So on Wednesday, December 9th, we have our English training. And then on Thursday, December 10th, we'll have our one in Spanish for landlord training. So I will send over. Kate, did you get the information or do you want me to put it in the chat?
I'm posting it as we speak.
Awesome.
And then do you want to just describe these programs a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So landlord training is a great thing to do if you're interested in being a landlord, if you're a current landlord, or honestly, if you're a tenant. We do have a tenant training specifically, but I took this when I was a tenant and found it really useful to know what your landlord should or shouldn't be doing. We have an instructor who goes over a lot of the different things that you might want to know. Different laws that change every year, resources for if you need repairs or anything that has to do with landlords specifically, we try to cover at least an overview. And you do get a packet of materials so that if you have further questions, you can go to those agencies to get what you need. The Rent for Success is our tenant-specific program, and that one is more aimed at tenants. Again, you could take it as a landlord as well, but both of these are free, open to the public. Currently, Rent for Success is only offered in English, but if you need Spanish translation, do let us know and we'll make sure to make that available. And there are only 1 date each month for Rent for Success. The dates this month, we have one next week on November 19th and one on Thursday, December 17th. So those are our 2 for tenants specifically. Those are evening classes. They start at 4 o'clock and they're shorter. It's not a 5-hour class.
Cool. Well, that's great information for people to have, especially given everything that's going on with the pandemic still and people having difficulties paying their rent. It's really important to know what your rights are as a tenant, especially for that Rent for Success.
100%. It is. We always are making referrals to a lot of different community organizations, and just it's important to know who to ask, who to call at community advocates, what your rights are, because we know and we hear from everybody that sometimes things are happening that absolutely should not be. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this information. As I said, everything is in the comment section for people to know who to contact and the website for more information if anyone that's watching is interested in these programs. And Steph, thank you so much for being with us again. Yeah. We are so thankful to get this information out to people.
Of course. Thanks for asking. Hope you guys have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Again, all of that information appears in the comment section. So if the landlord training or Rent for Success program is of interest to you, please reach out to those contacts that are in the comments. And those websites are also available in the comments. So feel free to explore further at your own pace. Finally, I am going to share a reminder on how to wear our mask. The pandemic is still happening. Coronavirus is still an active threat to everybody. So it's important to remember how to be wearing your mask. So we have Maritza Pyle from the Walker's Point Clinic here to let us know.
Hi, I'm Maritza and I work at Walker's Point Community Clinic. I'm a medical assistant and community health worker, and I want to show you how to wear your mask properly. This is really important so that when you cough or sneeze, particles don't come out of your mask through your nose or through your mouth, and it protects you from other people's particles. So first, whenever you're about to put a mask on, you're going to sanitize your hands or wash your hands before you even put on the mask. You're gonna get in all those little crevices in your nails. Don't forget about the thumb and your wrists. And then you're gonna take your mask, and there's gonna be a part, often there's a part that has a little ridge for the nose. And you're gonna grab it by the strings and place the mask on your face. Notice how the bottom is covering my chin. That's good. Notice how the top is covering my nose. Also good. If there's a part in your mask that has a little plastic part, press that down. This helps to make sure that air can't get through there. And that's it. Later on, after I do my shopping or whatever it is that I'm doing, and I want to take off my mask, I'm also going to sanitize. I'm going to clean my hands, because who knows what I touched. I'm going to grab my mask by the strings and take it off like this. This is how not to wear a mask. Wrong. Nose out, also wrong. Hanging out on the chin, not great either. Doesn't really do its thing, doesn't do its job. So we want to make sure that our entire mouth and nose is covered by the mask. And there you have it.
Thank you for that information, Maritza, and thank you, Marlene, for preparing that video. It's one we've shown a number of times, but every time it's just a great reminder of how to be wearing your mask and how not to be wearing your mask. I also just want to remind everybody to fill out our survey, and I'll share a short promo for that.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take a quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you to everybody who has stayed on with us to watch this video. Even if you're watching after the fact, if you have any questions or comments that you want to put in the comment section, we will happily answer them. We get those notifications and are still so happy to know that people are watching it later on. So feel free to give us a like, a heart, a comment, a hello, even if you're watching this any other day, any other hour. We would love to hear from all of you. So again, thank you for being with us. We hope the conversation today was enlightening with Ed Fallone from Marquette University Law School, letting us know about what is going on with the election, what is legal, what is expected. So again, thank you to everybody who was part of that conversation. And we look forward to more information coming out about the election and more guests who can shed light on it. For now, I will leave you with a video that thanks all of you as our viewers and our funders as well. See you soon.
I'm Juan. And I'm Mitzi. We would like to thank everyone for supporting our 3 o'clock with SOC live show.
And for completing our SOC survey.
In addition to thanking our residents and tuning in and sharing our show.
We would also like to thank our sponsors.
Catholic Campaign for Human Development.
Wisconsin Voices.
City Development Block Grant.
Ziegler Foundation.
City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention.
Movement Voter Project. Tide Foundation.
City of Milwaukee Promise Zone.
12th District Alderman Jose Perez.
All the faithful individuals who support SOC
Through their personal donations.
Thank